The diner's door slammed open, letting in a blast of winter wind and a terrified little boy no older than 8. His cheeks were burning red from the cold, streaked with tears that refused to stop. "Please," he cried, struggling to breathe. "Someone help me. They hurt my grandpa." His shaking hand pointed toward the snowy parking lot, where an elderly man lay collapsed between frozen cars, his broken cane half buried in drifting snow. And right there in that quiet diner, a former Navy SEAL and his loyal German shepherd looked up, unaware they were seconds away from becoming the heroes this child never knew he'd meet. Before we continue, tell us where you are watching from. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe so we can keep bringing you powerful stories of courage and kindness. The boy in the frozen night, winter pressed against Boise in a hush of white and trembling wind. Inside the small late-night diner on Willow Street, Noah Carter wiped down the counter with the quiet precision of a man who needed movement more than rest. At 40, he carried the solid frame of a former Navy SEAL, broad-shouldered and strong, though a faint stiffness remained in his left knee from an injury he never talked about. His face was angular and weathered, marked by a sharp jaw and a few pale scars that hid beneath the shadow of his neatly trimmed beard. There was warmth in his dark brown eyes, the kind that made strangers trust him, yet beneath that warmth lived an alertness shaped by years of danger and loss. By his feet lay Ranger, a 5-year-old German shepherd with a black and tan coat and the steady patience of a seasoned working dog. His ears were upright, his amber eyes tracked every sound. The harness across his chest read, "Service dog, do not pet," but the softness he showed when Noah's hand brushed his head revealed the bond between them. The wind struck the diner windows hard. Outside, the street was empty except for drifting snow that glimmered under the street lamps. Then the door burst open. A small boy stumbled inside, bundled in a thin winter coat with one sleeve torn near the shoulder. Snow clung to his dark hair. His cheeks were red from the cold and from crying. He looked about 8 years old, slight in build, with wide brown eyes that carried more fear than any child should know. "Please, please help me," he gasped. "They hurt my grandpa. He's in the parking lot. There's so much blood." Noah's body moved before his thoughts caught up. He stepped around the counter in 2 long strides. Ranger rose to his feet, tail stiff, body tense. "What's your name?" Noah asked, keeping his voice steady. His training resurfaced, wrapping his tone in calm. Eli Parker." The boy clutched the front of his coat as though holding himself together. "We were leaving the store. These guys came out. They pushed him. They kicked him. He couldn't even stand up." Noah knelt to level their eyes. "Is your grandpa still breathing?" Eli nodded, but the motion was shaky. "He tries to talk, but it sounds wrong. I didn't know where else to go. I saw your lights." The fear in the boy's voice struck something deep in Noah's chest. He remembered nights in distant deserts when he was younger, when he had held wounded teammates in his arms and felt the helpless burn of time slipping away. He gathered himself and stood. "Stay close to me," he said. Ranger leaned forward, giving the boy a brief, assessing sniff. The dog's posture softened just enough to show he understood the urgency. Noah grabbed his navy winter coat from the hook near the door. The heavy fabric brushed against the red and black flannel shirt he always wore beneath it. He pushed through the door with Eli at his side, and Ranger trotting ahead, nose lifted into the cold. The parking lot was a dim expanse of packed snow and flickering yellow lights. The wind carried the bitter scent of metal and engine oil. Noah scanned the area with the instinctive precision of a man who had done similar scans in far more dangerous places. "There," Eli whispered. Near the far edge of the lot, a figure lay crumpled beside a broken walking cane. The glow from the nearest lamp fell across a man in his 70s with gray hair matted to his forehead. His winter jacket was torn. A streak of blood ran from his eyebrow to his cheek. His face held the sturdy lines of someone who had worked with his hands for a lifetime. This was Walter Parker, a retired plumber who had spent his life fixing broken pipes and greeting neighbors with patient humor. But tonight, pain bent his body into a fragile shape. Eli sprinted toward him with a cry. "Grandpa!" Noah followed quickly, dropping to one knee beside the injured man. Walter's breath came in shallow pulls. His eyes fluttered open, revealing a hint of pale blue beneath heavy lids. "Sir, my name is Noah," he said. "I'm here to help you. Can you hear me?" Walter managed a faint nod. His voice rasped. They took my bag. Didn't want to give it. Shouldn't have fought them." He winced. Knew better once. You did nothing wrong, Noah said. He checked for broken ribs, watched the rising and falling of Walter's chest, and pressed a cloth from his coat pocket against the wound on Walter's forehead. Blood warmed the fabric quickly, too quickly. Eli knelt beside him, trembling so hard his teeth clicked. Noah placed a steadying hand on the boy's shoulder. Ranger stood a few paces away, his posture tall and alert. The dog's gaze fixed on the far darkness where the lot opened toward an alley, his ears tilted forward. Then he released a single low bark, not loud, not frantic, a warning. Noah stiffened. Footsteps. Faint, quickly retreating across the snow. Someone was still out there. He turned toward the sound, but saw only shifting shadows. The cold tightened around them like a fist. Eli clung to his grandfather. Walter's eyes began to close again, his skin paling as if drawn toward the cold ground beneath him. "Stay with me, Walter," Noah said. But even as he spoke, he felt the moment slipping. The night grew heavier. The shadows seemed to move. Ranger growled under his breath, the sound low and controlled. Noah's pulse quickened. He had reached them in time, or maybe he hadn't, and the winter wind carried no answers. Tracks in the snow and shadows, breaking away, the cold pressed harder as Noah lifted Walter into his arms, the elderly man's weight light yet trembling with pain. Eli hurried beside him, his breath sharp and unsteady. Snow swirled around their legs as if trying to pull them back toward the darkness. Ranger moved ahead in slow, controlled strides, his nose close to the ground. The prints scattered across the white surface were chaotic, weaving in frantic patterns that betrayed violence. At the far edge of the lot, just beyond the nearest street lamp, two figures scrambled into a dark pickup truck. The vehicle was old, dented along the fender, and its rear bumper hung unevenly. Its engine roared to life, spitting smoke as it lurched away. Ranger lunged forward with a deep growl rumbling in his chest. His muscles bunched as though he could tear after the truck on his own, but Noah called him back with a tone forged from years of command. "Ranger, stay!" The dog stopped at once, his ears flattened with frustration, yet his posture remained disciplined. Inside the diner, warmth wrapped around them like a thin blanket. Walter groaned as Noah lowered him gently into a booth. His face was gray beneath the blood and bruises. The cut along his temple had clotting snow still melting into it. A woman hurried from the back of the diner. Her name was Marla Jensen, the night cook who had worked here nearly 20 years. She was tall and narrow-shouldered with faded auburn hair pulled into a loose bun. Her cheeks bore freckles, and her eyes, a muted green, always carried something cautious in them. People said she had once been carefree until her husband died in a car accident 10 winters ago. Since then, she moved through the world with a quiet heaviness. "Oh, dear Lord," she whispered. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Noah, what happened?" "3 young men jumped him in the parking lot," Noah said. "I need towels, hot water, anything clean." Marla disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a stack of folded cloths and a bowl of steaming water. She set them down with her usual steadiness, though her fingers betrayed a tremble. Walter winced as Noah cleaned the blood from his brow. "Just let me be," the older man muttered. "I've taken worse hits fixing pipes in basements." Noah shook his head. "Not like this." He pressed gently along Walter's ribs and felt the man stiffen. "You might have fractures. I need an ambulance." Eli stood nearby, wringing his hands, small shoulders curved inward as though trying to disappear. Noah reached out and squeezed them. "You're safe," he said softly. "Both of you." Ranger took position at the front door. His body blocked the entrance with silent authority. Snow clung to his coat, yet he didn't shake it off. His gaze was locked outward as though he could see through the storm. Eli spoke at last, voice raw. "Their names are Tyler, Cole, and Logan. They're older than me. They live on the north side. They always cause trouble." Noah looked up. "You know them?" "Everyone does," Eli said. "They brag a lot. They pick on kids at the park. Grandpa told me to stay away from them." Marla folded her arms. "Tyler Briggs," she murmured. "I know that name. His father has money, thinks he can buy everyone." Noah pulled his phone from his coat pocket and called the police. When the dispatcher's voice came through, calm and almost rehearsed, Noah laid out the situation with clarity and control. A few minutes later, he lowered the phone with a grim look. "They said they can't act without evidence." Marla scoffed. "They always say that when the wrong families are involved." Eli's eyes filled again. "So they won't help Grandpa?" Noah knelt to meet his gaze. "They don't think they can yet. but we'll keep you safe tonight, I promise." The boy nodded, though doubt still clouded his face. Outside, the storm gathered strength. Snow battered the windows, the wind howling with rising fury. The lights flickered once, then steadied. Ranger lifted his head, sensing the pressure in the air, his muscles tightening. Marla pulled down the blinds, shutting out some of the darkness. "Storm's going to get bad," she said. "If those boys are still outside, they won't stay long in this cold." Noah glanced at the footprints smeared across the floor, where he had carried Walter in. "They ran once. They might come back to finish whatever they started." Marla swallowed. Why would anyone want to hurt an old man? Eli looked at his grandfather curled in the booth. They wanted his shopping bag. They thought he had money. Walter managed to whisper, "I told them to leave us be. Next thing I knew, I was on the ground." He sagged again, pale and wavering. Noah's chest tightened. He remembered another winter, another battlefield, when someone he cared about had slipped away before help arrived. He would not let that happen again. He reached for the radio behind the counter and called for emergency medical response. The storm delayed their arrival, but at least help was coming. Ranger suddenly let out a soft rumble, not loud, not frantic, a sound of recognition rather than warning. Noah moved to the window and peered through the glass. The swirling snow blurred everything, yet two sets of tracks leading away from the diner were still visible beneath the fresh snowfall. They angled toward the alley behind the hardware store. Someone had been watching them, someone who had run only moments before the storm swallowed their trail. "Stay close," Noah said. Eli nodded and clung to his sleeve. Walter's breathing deepened again, slipping toward another wave of dizziness. Outside, the wind rose in a long cry, and the night shifted as though something unseen waited just beyond the falling snow. The storm and the silent pursuit, Noah hammered the streets as the ambulance doors shut with a hollow thud. Noah climbed into the front beside the paramedic while Eli remained in the back, clutching his grandfather's gloved hand. Ranger leapt into the passenger footwell and settled low, every muscle taut. The storm had grown vicious, the kind that erased landmarks and swallowed headlights whole. The ambulance pulled away from the diner, its red lights pulsing across the empty road. Noah watched the swirling white ahead. The night felt stretched thin, as though something unseen pressed along its edges. Ranger suddenly released a sharp, urgent sound, not a bark. A warning pulled from instinct older than language. He planted his paws and stared through the windshield. "What is it, boy?" Noah murmured. The paramedic, Jonas Hale, glanced over briefly. Jonas was in his mid-30s, a stocky man with sandy blonde hair, cropped short. His square face held a certain earnestness, even under stress. He had joined emergency services after losing a cousin in a remote rescue delay, and he carried that loss in the determined way he handled every call. Tonight, however, even Jonas seemed unsettled by the dog's behavior. Then Noah saw it. Far behind them, a dark shape emerged through the wall of snow. Headlights cut short and low across the drifts. The same battered pickup truck from the parking lot. Noah's pulse quickened. "They're back." Jonas stiffened. "Are you sure?" Ranger growled again, confirming what Noah already knew. The ambulance approached an intersection where the main road curved left toward the hospital. Noah could see the path narrowing ahead, the snowplows not yet reaching the stretch. If the pickup meant to force them off the road, this was the place to do it. "Take the service lane on the right," Noah said. "Now." Jonas hesitated a fraction of a second. Then he swerved. The ambulance bumped onto a smaller road that wound between industrial warehouses, half buried in snow. The pickup barreled forward, tires screeching across ice. Its high beams flared, washing the back of the ambulance in white and shadow. From the rear compartment came Eli's thin cry. "Noah, what's happening?" "Stay with your grandpa," Noah called back. "We've got you." The storm howled louder. Snow slashed across the windshield like shards. The pickup closed in. Ranger braced his front legs against the dashboard, ears pinned sharp, watching every movement of the threatening vehicle. Noah reached across Jonas to steady the wheel. When the ambulance fishtailed briefly, a bridge loomed ahead, its metal railings shaking under the wind. "Cross it," Noah ordered. "They won't risk speeding on something that narrow." Jonas pressed forward. The tires gripped the frozen roadway in a slow, grinding crawl. The bridge rattled beneath them as gusts hammered at its side. Noah held his breath. Ranger glared at the headlights behind them. The pickup began to follow, but halfway onto the bridge it faltered. The driver hesitated as a gust nearly shoved the truck sideways. After a tense moment, the pickup backed away and vanished again into the storm. Jonas let out a shaky exhale. Who tries to run down an ambulance? What kind of animals are these boys? The kind who think no one can stop them, Noah replied. They're wrong. Minutes later, they reached Boise Community Medical Center, a building that rose from the snow like a pale fortress. Floodlights cut through the storm and cast long shadows across the entrance. Nurses met them at the bay doors and swiftly brought Walter inside. The interior warmth hit like a wave, but the fear did not lift. Eli walked beside the gurney, his small hand wrapped around Walter's wrist beneath the glove. His face was blotchy and tired, yet stubbornly alert. No one had to tell him to stay strong. He had chosen that long ago. Walter was wheeled into the emergency unit. The door shut behind him, leaving Eli and Noah in the hallway, lined with muted green paint and buzzing fluorescent lights. A nurse approached, Sarah Lindholm, a woman in her late 20s with soft brown curls pulled into a ponytail. Her complexion was pale from long night shifts, and her eyes were the gentle gray of someone who had learned to hide exhaustion behind professionalism. She had a calm voice that wrapped around people like a blanket. Years ago, she had cared for her own father through a chronic illness, and the patience she learned in that struggle lingered in her presence. He'll be evaluated right away, Sarah said. Head trauma and suspected rib fractures. The team is ready. Eli swallowed hard. He'll be okay, right? Sarah knelt so they were eye level. We're going to do everything we can. He's in the best place he can be right now. Noah watched the boy's shoulders relax just slightly. Eli shifted closer to him, as though Noah's steadiness might keep the world from cracking open again. Ranger sat beside Noah, tail wrapped neatly against his side. Snow melted in small droplets across his coat. His eyes never stopped moving, scanning the hall, the windows, the doors. Noah stepped to the glass door overlooking the parking lot. Snowfall blurred the view, but he searched for movement, for headlights, for anything that would betray the return of the truck. Nothing. Only the storm. Inside him, a sense of obligation grew heavier than the winter air. He had stepped into this because a boy ran into his diner with fear in his voice, but now there was more. There was a man fighting for breath, a child refusing to leave his side, a shadow in the snow that would not leave quietly. Noah placed his palm on the cold glass. They'll come again, he murmured. Ranger leaned against his leg in silent agreement. Eli came to stand beside him. Noah, will you stay? Noah looked down at him, then toward the hallway where Walter had disappeared. Yes, he said, and the storm outside howled on, as if the night itself understood that this was only the beginning. The truth uncovered, morning crept into the hospital through thin gray light, soft enough not to wake those who had fought sleep through the storm. Noah sat in a plastic chair near Walter's room, Ranger curled at his feet like a living sentinel. Eli slept against Noah's side, his head resting on Noah's coat sleeve. The boy had refused to leave until he knew his grandfather would open his eyes again. Inside the room, machines hummed with steady rhythm. Walter lay beneath a warm blanket, his face pale but no longer strained with pain. Snow still drifted past the window, lighter than the night before. It felt like the storm had exhausted its rage, leaving behind a brittle quiet. When Walter finally stirred, Noah rose. The older man blinked slowly, the blue of his eyes clearing as awareness returned. Morning, Noah said gently. Eli jerked awake, scrambling to his feet. Grandpa, you're awake. Walter lifted a trembling hand to touch the boy's cheek. Course I am. Takes more than a few fools to stop an old man like me. But his voice held a heaviness beneath the humor, a shadow of something that had weighed on him since the attack. Sarah entered with her clipboard, her brown curls tucked neatly behind one ear. She checked Walter's vitals with the practiced movements of someone who had spent years in the ritual of care. Her gray eyes warmed when she saw him awake. You gave us a scare, she said softly, but your tests look much better today. Walter exhaled with relief, then turned to Noah and Eli. There's something you need to know. Noah stepped closer. Eli's hand clutched the bed rail. They didn't attack me because of anything I said, Walter began. They saw me leaving the store. I had just cashed a small check. Those boys thought I was carrying a lot of money. When I told them to back off, they decided to take it anyway. Noah's jaw tightened. Eli's face flooded with disbelief. But they didn't take anything, the boy whispered. No, Walter replied, because I fought back. Foolish, maybe, but I wasn't going to let them rob me with you standing there. His hand shook with the memory. Noah placed his own hand briefly over Walter's in a grounding gesture. Then they hit me, Walter continued, and I went down hard. The truth hung in the room, sharp and cold, yet necessary. Noah stood straighter. "I'm going out for a bit. Eli, stay with your grandfather." The boy nodded without hesitation. Ranger rose the moment Noah moved. The dog's amber eyes flicked toward the hallway, as though sensing their next destination. Outside, the storm had calmed. Snow crunched beneath their boots as they made their way toward the grocery store parking lot. The scene felt changed in daylight, stripped of its terror, yet still marked by shadows of what had happened. Ranger sniffed the air, moving slowly across the asphalt until he stopped beside a large green dumpster near the loading area. His ears pricked, his posture sharpened with purpose. "What is it?" Noah asked. Ranger pressed his nose toward the base of the dumpster, where something glinted faintly beneath the snow. Noah crouched and pulled out a cracked phone with a shattered screen. The casing was scuffed. A thin smear of dried mud stretched across it. "Well done," Noah murmured. He powered it on. The screen flickered, but managed to display a jagged image. Noah tapped through the files and found one video file saved at nearly midnight the previous night. He played it. The screen shook as if filmed while walking. 3 young men appeared, laughing loudly. Their faces, though partly shadowed, were unmistakable. Tyler Briggs, tall with a muscular build and a permanent smirk. Cole Mendez, slim, eyes darting like he was waiting for permission to breathe. And Logan Sharp, broad-shouldered but expressionless, following the other 2 without thought or conviction. Tyler's voice came through clearly. "Old man just cashed something big. Easy pickings." Cole laughed. "Bet he'll squeal." Logan muttered, "Just hurry." Noah froze the frame. Their arrogance was blatant, their intent undeniable. He pocketed the phone and headed straight to the police station. Inside, the desk officer, Sergeant Elena Brooks, a woman in her early 40s with short black hair and sharp cheekbones, looked up from her paperwork. Elena had a no-nonsense air about her. Years on the force had shaped her posture into something rigid, yet her dark eyes held patience. She had joined law enforcement after losing a younger brother to gang violence, a history that prompted her refusal to dismiss any case easily. "Morning," she said. "How can I help you?" Noah set the cracked phone on the counter. "You'll want to see this." Elena raised a brow, tapped the screen, and watched the video. As it played, her expression hardened. "This is enough to open an arrest," she said. "More than enough." Within the hour, officers were dispatched. Noah did not accompany them. He returned to the hospital instead, Ranger trotting beside him. When he walked back into the waiting room, Eli jumped to his feet. "Did you find something?" Noah knelt to meet his gaze. "Yes, and the police have it now." Hours later, Elena arrived with news. The boys had been arrested. Tyler Briggs, usually cocky and loud, had broken during questioning and confessed. Eli clutched Noah's hand. "You really saved my grandpa." Noah looked at Walter resting peacefully through the window. "No," he answered quietly. "We all did." Light at winter's end. By the time the last days of winter crept into Boise, the sky had softened into gentle silver. The storm that once roared through the city now lay quiet under the weak afternoon sun. Snow melted along the curbs, dripping from rooftops like thawing memories. Inside Noah's small diner, the air smelled of brewed coffee and pine wood shavings. Noah stood near a workbench he had set up by the window. With slow, deliberate care, he sanded the length of a wooden cane. His movements were steady, but carried the fatigue of long nights and heavier worries. The fine shavings collected on his flannel shirt, settling into the fabric as though they belonged there. Ranger lay nearby, his large frame stretched across the floorboards. His black and tan coat gleamed under the soft indoor light. His ears twitched each time someone walked past the windows, yet his posture remained calm. He had not left Noah's side since the attack, acting as watchful as ever, yet more relaxed now that the danger had finally passed. The bell above the diner door chimed. Eli Parker bounded in first, cheeks flushed from the cold. He looked lighter today, less weighed down. His winter coat was zipped up to his chin, but the brightness in his eyes spoke of something warmer than weather. Behind him came his grandfather, Walter, moving slowly yet more confidently than he had in days. Walter wore a thick navy jacket and a knitted scarf that Eli had insisted on bringing. His voice was still lined with the bruises of the attack, but color had returned to his cheeks. He seemed stronger, his steps more grounded. "Afternoon," Walter said, voice steady but tinged with amusement. "Hope we're not interrupting a craftsman at work." Noah looked up and smiled, a small but sincere curve of his lips. "Just finishing something." Walter approached the workbench. Noah handed him the cane. It was simple yet solid, its surface smooth, the handle carved with subtle grooves for grip. The dark grain gleamed under the light. "This is for you," Noah said. "Figured something sturdy might help for the next few weeks." Walter turned it in his hands, his expression softening. "This is fine work. Strong wood. Military strong. Leftover training timber," Noah said. "From years ago." Eli joined them, bouncing on the balls of his feet. "Grandpa, try it." Walter did. He leaned on the cane, testing its balance. Then he nodded with approval. "It'll hold," he said. "Just like the man who made it." Eli grinned. It was the widest smile Noah had seen on him since that terrible night. There was no tremble in his hands now, no shadow of fear across his features. Instead, there was pride, gratitude, something bright enough to thaw the coldest wind. Ranger rose and sauntered over. Eli threw his arms around the dog's thick neck, burying his face in the soft fur. "He stayed up all night," Eli said. "Didn't he? Ranger doesn't sleep much when someone needs him," Noah replied. Walter watched them with fondness. Then he turned to Noah, his voice quieter. "You didn't just save my life," he said. "You gave my grandson back something he lost. His trust, his courage. That isn't easy to do." Noah shifted slightly, embarrassed by praise he didn't feel he deserved. "You two did the hard part. I just showed up when you needed someone." Walter shook his head. "Don't diminish it. Not everyone answers a cry for help. Some look away." Noah's gaze drifted to the window, where snowflakes drifted lazily. "I've seen enough people hurt in my life. Couldn't walk away from another." Silence settled briefly, warm rather than heavy. Then Walter touched Noah's arm with a firm squeeze. "You're welcome at our home any time," he said. "And you're welcome here," Noah answered. "Both of you." Eli tugged at his grandfather's sleeve. "Grandpa, can we come every week? Noah makes the best hot chocolate." Walter chuckled. Then it settled. They spent a little longer talking, letting the gentle afternoon light fill the small diner. When they finally stood to leave, Eli hugged Ranger one last time. "We'll come back soon," he promised. Walter lifted the cane Noah had crafted. "Thank you," he said once more, simple and sincere. As the Parker family walked out into the thinning snow, their shadows stretched long across the street. Ranger followed them with his eyes, ears pricking as though listening to the echo of their footsteps. When they disappeared down the sidewalk, Ranger nudged Noah's leg. The man looked down, then out toward the beating winter sky. A night that once threatened to shatter 3 lives had instead forged a bond none of them could have predicted. Courage, kindness, and the quiet loyalty of a boy, a grandfather, a soldier, and a dog had woven themselves into something that would outlast the season. In a city bruised by winter's grip, the promise remained. When someone cries for help, someone will always answer. In the quiet after the storm, it became clear that some miracles do not arrive with thunder or blinding light. Sometimes they come softly, carried in the footsteps of a frightened child seeking help, in the steady hands of a weary veteran who refuses to walk away, or in the loyal watch of a shepherd dog standing guard through the night. And perhaps, in moments like these, we glimpse a truth many of us forget in the rush of everyday life. God often works through ordinary people who choose kindness when it costs them something, who step forward when others turn away. A miracle does not always change the world at once. Sometimes it simply changes one night, one family, one heart. And that is enough to remind us that grace is still alive in this world. As you go back to your own busy days, may you carry that light with you. May you find the courage to answer someone's cry for help. May you feel God's protection over your home, your family, and your weary moments. And may the Lord bless every viewer here with peace, strength, and a miracle of their own when they need it most. If this story touched your heart, please share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue spreading messages of hope, compassion, and faith. May God watch over you tonight and every night ahead. God bless you.